SellerSnap, what we're really focused on is making sure that we're priced in a specific way that makes us the most appealing to the end consumer. The thing that's so unique about repricing, you're actually competing against other sellers for the views. We're all trying to make sure that we get the most eyes on our products at the highest possible price and outsmart our competition to make sure that we are the product that gets purchased when a customer arrives on an Amazon page and goes and clicks that button, buy it now.
Adrian, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and taking time out of your busy schedule to obviously talk to me about the state of Amazon, repricing, and what the future of Amazon is going to be, especially with the world of AI right now. But if anyone doesn't know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us a little bit about what SellerSnap is? And obviously, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, for sure thing, Tom. Well, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. I love jumping into these types of conversations and just doing the fat on all things Amazon. It's, my day to day. And so getting a chance to do some interview is also a lot of fun. Like you said, my name is Adrian. I'm the general manager at SellerSnap. We are a repricing or a price optimization and analytics platform, specifically for wholesale or third-party sellers in the e-commerce space. I've been with the company for almost 6 years. And sort of my day-to-day is building sort of long-term strategy for the organization. So I spend a lot of time with our R&D departments and with our customers and trying to understand their problems, their issues, and building really robust solutions to be able to solve some of those problems. And a lot of that stuff comes from, a price and price optimization perspective, but also from an analytics perspective or an inventory management perspective. And so always looking for that opportunity and those challenges or changes in the e-commerce space or changes in Amazon's policies and ways to make sure that our customers are as profitable as possible and as successful in growing their business. And if I was to put it bluntly, that is essentially my job, is making sure that our customers are successful in their business.
I love it. And I think just if anyone's watching, we've had a lot of conversations off camera, talking behind the scenes, talking about features of what's going on and also around the market as well. And the one reason why I've asked you to join me today on the channel is really because you have a great technical knowledge, you understand a lot about the industry, and you understand about the state of Amazon and how repricing works. And for me, I've learned so much from you. So I'd love to pick your brains today and understand more about that. So I hope you're really happy to kind of divulge everything that you've learned, the pros and cons, and also the technical aspects about a lot of people maybe don't understand. The first thing I want to kind of jump into is, obviously you said you've been working in SellerSnap now for 6 years. But really is the state of Amazon. Can you just talk me through how's Amazon changed over the last 6 years? Tell me about that.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely a different beast. If I was to say, one sort of thing there, I wouldn't say that I entered into the space in software at the golden age of Amazon. That may have been a bit before that. When I came into Amazon, going to conferences, speaking to sellers, a big thing in the space was all these aggregators buying up Amazon businesses. There was, money rushing into the Amazon space. People thought that this was going to be their next big bet, this next big buy. And that came, I guess, on the back of what was a really successful entrance into e-commerce for a lot of people. People were building really big businesses without brick and mortar stores on the back of Amazon's marketplace and, Walmart entering into the space and of what was 20 years ago, a big part of eBay. And then I think once investors realized that this was an opportunity, they said, well, let's throw capital at it. So, I remember going to conferences and the only vendors were people trying to buy and aggregate Amazon businesses. And I think you don't sort of see so much of that anymore. And I think more recently, there's definitely been an immense consolidation of sellers. If there was money rushing into businesses to make them more efficient, to help them to scale 6 years ago, now I think, Amazon is being really selective of who are the people that sell on the marketplace. And I think we discussed this the other week, but there's definitely been a squeeze out of that middle-sized seller. There's people entering the space and there's people scaling their business. And what's become harder and harder and harder is these small businesses to make a bit of a buck and to become profitable and really scale their operations in a way that is above board, that they're getting inventory from legitimate suppliers. And so gone are, I think, those days where anyone can get into the space by working out of their mum's garage and build a side hustle as an e-commerce, empire. And right now it's just a regular 9 to 5. People are working really hard to just make sure they make ends meet, doing something that they enjoy, which is selling online and having the flexibility of being their own boss to make that happen. But it takes a lot of hard work. And that's sort of why I say, that golden age has come and gone a little bit.
Getting access to the right information, knowledge, direction, and guidance is going to really support you. Now, if you are interested in taking your business to the next level from people who have already been there and built not one, but multiple 7-figure Amazon businesses in the UK and the USA, then do check out the Amazon FBA War Room. We have a really engaged community where you can ask questions. We have classroom material. You can do 0 to 10K in just 2 hours per day. Weekly live training, which is all recorded, and you can see all the previous recordings and watch them back since we started. You've also got fighting section 3s, and we do a weekly live Q&A session. You can watch them all back, see the handouts, get everything you need to know. And right now there is a free 7-day trial, and I'll drop a link down in the description. You can access this and get started scaling your business. Join us on the weekly live calls, get the information you need to scale. You mentioned there, like back in time, I remember the aggregators, they were a massive thing. Like I had a good friend of mine shut his own private label business down and actually went to go work for an aggregator to be like their second in command, I think it was. And I remember that, them buying up. Like, why did that stop? Like, why has that transition changed now? Why is there not so many people buying the brands up as we've seen previously?
There's probably many different reasons. I think if I was to put my finger on one major reason, is probably because in this space, there's a lot of attention and care that needs to come from you as a seller, as a sole proprietor. And, you can definitely get support get support from other people and staff within your team. But I think at aggregate level, the attention and care to detail just wasn't there. Everyone thought we would be able to buy these businesses. We will be at a situation where you were 1,000 times more efficient. We would increase our margins and, everyone would just make a lot of money. And that wasn't the case. People had to show attention to detail on the products that they chose to sell and why they chose to sell them. And, in the private label space, they definitely had to think about, how they advertise the goods and how they manufactured. And, in the wholesale space, they had to think about their relationship with their suppliers or their buyers if they were doing scanning, retail arbitrage or online arbitrage. And at scale, this process just didn't work and things fell through the crack and people lost profitability and focused too much on cash flow and not their bottom line. And so what ended up happening is these businesses that had raised exorbitant amounts of money, invested and bought all of these businesses, couldn't recuperate their cash. And so once again, we're returning to this place where the sellers own their businesses and have that autonomy, like I mentioned before, but without that sort of big aggregator function that operates behind the scenes.
I still remember that time happening. Like, it's very interesting how it's changed. And it was all the big aggregators, and they started to consolidate the aggregators. And then obviously we're like, I don't think you can do it because as an entrepreneur, business owner, you're so in the weeds that I understand the economies of scale as you get bigger, but there's so many nuances in it that make such a big difference. You mentioned Amazon is becoming more selective. You said it's no longer, should we say, a side hustle. It's now like a 9 to 5. It's like a job. Could you kind of tell me a bit more about that? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I don't actually know how much it's Amazon and how much it's regulators. But I guess what I was sort of alluding to is that, this year, something that we noticed, a major trend was, I guess, what I refer to in the space as Section 3 violations. So for those that are listening that don't know, Amazon has a terms of use or a terms and conditions document that all third-party sellers use or sign or agree to. And the Section 3 means that you broke one of the policies in there and they can terminate your seller account. So what we saw, and I don't know if you had experience with your partners or customers, but a lot of people in the space that were doing wholesale type businesses, arbitrage type businesses, they were having their business shut down under Section 3 because they couldn't prove where they had got their inventory from something they were doing early in their business. And they had to be very clear on their bookkeeping and their purchasing behaviors. And when you're getting into Amazon as this side hustle, you're not thinking about those things. You're just trying to get inventory, buying it, from Best Buys or buying it from, who knows. And maybe it wasn't, maybe you didn't, maintain your receipts or whatever it was. And you end up in a situation where your business gets shut down because you weren't able to validate or prove to Amazon that you were a reputable business. And I think making businesses become more bureaucratic is a way to keep out businesses from starting. The European marketplace is a really good example of that, because there are so many pieces of red tape to jump through to become a seller. I think the UK does something really good, which is they, you don't have to be a VAT registered seller until you make £80,000 a year. Great. So if you wanted to start a business, you can start a business and you don't have to go through the process of becoming a VAT registered business for those first £80,000. It gives you some runway. But if you're in any of those other marketplaces, you have to do so much work from day one when you're not profitable just to be able to run a business. And so I think as regulators kick in and push pressure on Amazon to make sure that, governments are getting their fair clip from a tax perspective, from a competition perspective, then what's ended up happening is Amazon's had to tighten their control and squeezed out, whether on purpose or not, squeezed out a lot of those, mid-range sellers that are just getting to the point of scaling their business.
Interesting. I think you talked about it earlier, and we've talked about it off air, that kind of like mid-range seller, like we see the reduction in them. Can I ask you two questions? One, what is a mid-range seller? And then number two, what do people need to be aware of? Is like Amazon you can't do, or can you still grow it? Like, do you still see examples of people growing the businesses, and just what do they need to be aware of when they get into that mid-range seller area?
Hard question to answer, actually. I use it very sparingly when I say mid-range seller, because I don't have an exact definition. I guess more so than what quantifies them in terms of how many products they sell or how much revenue they're making is how much dedication they are putting towards their cause to growing their business. So anyone can start an e-commerce business and pay the $49, I think it is, to get a seller account, and then you're just beginning, and you can list a product or two, something ungated from pet food or pet snacks as an example, and you're selling something and you're really early on there, and maybe you just stay around that point with a few SKUs, a few products. And then you try to go a bit deeper and get some approval to sell some other products and grow your business. And at this point, you're investing a lot of capital, and maybe you need a warehouse, and maybe you need a 3PL solution or an inventory management. You start to get to bookkeeping. And so when you jump from that, I'm just giving this a go, to I'm trying to grow a business. But if you don't put in, the elbow grease to take it to that next level, I think you get stuck in this no man's land where you're not making enough money to make it sustainable, but you're not investing enough time to take it to the next level. Amazon's making it very difficult. The regulators are making it difficult. You get squeezed out. So, I guess it's medium and small businesses more so, but I think it's more about the energy and the effort that you're putting into it. And if you don't believe in it, it's really hard to do that type of stuff. And that's when you get shut down.
I completely agree. The idea, and if you look at this business model on TikTok, hey, go to Walmart, find something cheap. Here's the twice the price on Amazon. I buy and sell it. Look how easy it is to make money. That is very appealing. And also as well, in the online make money online space, a lot of it can be seen as scammy. Like there's a thing, there's a worry about that. Whereas for me, being able to see something for $10 in Walmart and $20 in Amazon and saying, well, I might make $3 profit out of that was like, well, I can test that for a very little money down. That's very appealing. And then I can see if this is a scam or if it actually works. And obviously once you test it, wow, this actually works.
This actually works.
Yeah, and I love that proof of the ability to prove the concept is so easy, and so you can get started. But is there still a future for Amazon sellers knowing that middle ground? We say, okay, I've now proved the concept. Now I've got to become, I'm growing. Now I think about I need to go serious. Is there still a future for them, or is it like, no, end of, Amazon's finished for the middle ground? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I don't think it's finished, at all. As long as there's people that want to buy goods. America is a big market. Europe is a big market. As long as people want to buy goods and people want to make money by sitting on a beach somewhere in the world and be their own boss, there will be a marketplace on Amazon. It is a reshuffling. Some people there's a bit of attrition. People are leaving the space, consolidation through, the aggregators many years back. And so there's always going to be space. It's just natural churn. If you look at Amazon, I think there was so much focus in the early days in the United States, but Europe is this massive marketplace now. They just, Amazon, they call it the expansion marketplaces. They just launched Ireland, Belgium. These are areas that don't have massive footholds. There are opportunity there. Running businesses there can be really challenging for, like the regulatory reasons we mentioned before, but there's always opportunity in Amazon, and there's definitely always opportunity in e-commerce. It's, it just such a dynamic space, changing so regularly. There's so much sales, as an example, that are occurring right now through TikTok. It's this marketplace that they say might overtake Amazon as the premier marketplace for e-commerce globally. That's quite remarkable as a thing just to conceptualize. And so what is Amazon doing? Well, they're making a way for you to check out through TikTok using their marketplace. So you don't even know you're buying off Amazon, you're buying off TikTok, but you are buying from Amazon. So there's a lot of opportunity. You've got to keep your ear to the ground. I think be dynamic with the opportunities. Maybe you want to be a wholesaler, arbitrage online or retail. Maybe you want to go into the private label or brand ownership space, or maybe you want to do some form of drop shipping over TikTok. I'm not sure, but there's definitely opportunity. You just got to find your niche.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And it's interesting because I got the email today, Amazon Ireland opened up today. It's available. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I think you're right. There is regulation comes in. Amazon's a lot more established now. And so therefore it creates pressure on Amazon to become more, it's got to be a better operation with better sellers. But there is still so much opportunity. And if you're willing to do the hard work to overcome that, then it's still a booming market. E-commerce is still massively growing. You talked there about TikTok. You previously mentioned Walmart. Obviously, there are other platforms, other marketplaces opening up. I think in the US, I've recently seen Best Buy now has a third-party marketplace. Target now has a third-party marketplace. What do you see about that? Is that going to ruin Amazon? Or how do you see the kind of bigger scene of, should we say, third-party platforms working in e-commerce?
Yeah, I guess competition, generally speaking, is probably a good thing, even amongst marketplaces. I think Amazon became so unbelievably powerful through their fulfillment network, all their infrastructure that underpinned the marketplace. 24-hour delivery just wasn't a thing we thought about 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and now it is just something that is expected. So, they did some amazing things for the space from a consumer perspective. I think the challenges that we outlined, regulatory, sellers being able to maintain some level of profitability and run a business, is making people look outwards. What are my other opportunities? Can I sell on Walmart? Is there revenue to be made on eBay? Can I list items on TikTok? What does that even mean? So I think that depending on your business model and depending on what you sell, I think we need to have really wide open eyes and think about how can I make sure that I'm scaling my business as best as possible without biting off too much that you can't focus on anything enough to become confident in it. I think it's a good thing for the space. I've heard a lot of people this year say, we're gonna take Walmart really seriously this year. Why? Because they've realized they can make orders and make profits and revenue through that marketplace. So, it's a zero-sum game in that regard. You want to get onto those marketplaces and offer products and compete. And I think that the more marketplaces that exist, I think both better for sellers and better for consumers long term.
No, I love it. Thank you. So I appreciate I could be here all day talking about Amazon, but you, obviously, SellerSnap, you do a lot in the repricing space. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about what is repricing? How does it work? Why is it important? If people want to understand about that, give me an introduction to repricing on Amazon. It's
a complex issue. It's broad, repricing. So I guess starting off with a bit of what it is probably a good idea. So, when we think about repricing, really what we're saying is price optimization. And anyone that did, a final year marketing class or studied marketing or business in university or college, remember the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion, I think it is. So, one of the 4 elements of pricing of your business strategy is your price. And, you don't always think about it, but you're constantly presented with prices in your day to day. You go into a supermarket, you're looking at competitive goods and supplementary products. And you have to make a decision. And one of the factors that can affect your decision making is what is the price of this product. So at SellerSnap, what we're really focused on is making sure that we're priced in a specific way that makes us the most appealing to the end consumer. The thing that's so unique about repricing, unlike pricing in a supermarket, is that you're actually competing against other sellers for the views. So while in a supermarket, you're competing against other products that are supplementary, should I buy a Coca-Cola or a Sprite? On the Amazon world, you're competing to be in the Buybox. You're competing for the premier real estate on a marketplace. You're competing to make sure that when someone arrives on the page, if someone arrives on a product page, they see your product at a good value price that makes them go, I'm going to buy this product. And you are the one that fulfills it. So what SellerSnap does and what the repricing space is, we're all trying to make sure that we get the most eyes on our products at the highest possible price, and outsmart our competition to make sure that we are the product that gets purchased when a customer arrives on an Amazon page and goes and clicks that button, buy it now.
Interesting. You mentioned the Buybox. If anyone doesn't know, what is the Buybox? Could you just explain that?
The Buybox is the way that Amazon presents products to consumers. So I think a lot of people might not actually understand this. People in the e-commerce space will, but regular consumers sometimes don't. But Amazon is a marketplace. There are many sellers selling identical products. If we could take that example of a Coca-Cola can, there might be 20 people selling an identical box or carton or 16 pack of cans of Coca-Cola. So when a customer arrives, if they just want one box, well, they have to choose from one of 20 people. So what Amazon does is their algorithm decides which is the best value offer at the best value price for you as a consumer. And then they show you one of them. So being in that position makes you much more likely to, being in that buy box makes you much more likely to receive the sale.
And you mentioned there the algorithm. Like, what is the algorithm and how does it work? And what are the factors that influence whether I'm on the buy box or my competitors are on the buy box, winning that sale?
Yeah, so there's many things, and I don't think that anyone has an exact idea of all the inputs that occur that Amazon takes into account to decide what is the best value product. I'm not sure that they're not going to mention that information, and they're very complex algorithms, I'm sure. But there are some ones that we know definitively that are affected, that do affect the algorithm. And so one of them obviously is the price. For you as a buyer or a consumer, what is the best value offer? What is the best priced offer? So you're not going to see situations when you arrive at a price on an Amazon detail page for a product and Amazon is suggesting a more expensive offer than someone else. So a lower price is going to be a major factor. But also, where the inventory is. Amazon has fulfillment centers all over the country, through their Fulfilled by Amazon program. Sellers can fulfill their own goods from their own warehouses through Fulfilled by Merchant programs. And you as a consumer, you're one person. You live somewhere. You're in New York City. You're in Ohio. And you want to buy a product. And if the product is near you, it can be shipped quickly and arrive to you quickly. And so under, Prime, as an example, and many other Amazon programs, they're so customer centric that they want to get the product to you as quickly as possible. So if there's a product, if you're in the West Coast and there's a product in the West Coast and there's another seller in the West Coast, in a fulfillment center, and you're competing against a seller that is on the East Coast, it's very likely that seller on the East Coast is going to have to be priced significantly lower in order to become a good enough value proposition for Amazon to say, it's worth sending that good across a country in order to give the customer the best value offer. You have to be priced much below. So, location of the customer, location of the inventory, things like reviews, things like price, all of these play a really big hand in how Amazon determines who should be in that buy box. Okay,
fantastic. And so if someone's new to repricing right now, obviously they may be using a tool, they may not be, what are the key factors that they should be looking at to influence whether they win the buy box and make the sale? Obviously I'm a seller. I know my own idea, but I'm guessing I can't choose where I ship my product to. I want it in that warehouse for this one. Amazon does that, but what are the things that they should be aware of and what they can control?
Yeah, so I guess the major thing that they can control is their price. If you're starting an Amazon business, you're going to send your inventory to an FBA fulfillment center, or different FBA fulfillment centers, then you still get very limited control on where they ship them, to place them equally around the country or the region in order to make sure that they can fulfill really quickly to a customer regardless of where they purchase from. So you don't control that stuff so much, but you do really control your pricing strategy. And so I think more so than how do I structure my business or how do I structure my inventory and to make sure that I am being competitive, it is what is my pricing strategy and what am I trying to get out of a specific sale? as well as what is my business strategy. If you are doing an arbitrage business, you live and die on the best deal you can find, and you may never find it again. For you, your pricing strategy might be move inventory as quickly as possible at any cost above my break-even points so that I can buy more inventory with the capital and do it again. And if you are a wholesaler that has really good relationships with suppliers, you're really interested in making sure that you maintain as high profitability as possible, maintain a reasonable sell-through rate so that you're pushing enough goods through the door consistently to make sure you're not paying excess fees in your Amazon storage, but you don't want the price to lower so much that you cannot buy from that supplier again. You put so much work into your relationship with your supplier, and now because you have lowered the price so much, you're not profitable, you can't reorder from them, and you've lost that relationship for that specific SKU. So it really depends on you and your business and your goals and the products you sell and what's the pricing strategy to get you there.
Cool. No, I like it. Thank you. So obviously you run, should we say, as part of SellerSnap, the team there, and SellerSnap does repricing. So it basically helps sellers to automate their repricing, and it uses advanced algorithms to do this. And I know now into the AI world as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. What are the things that you see within the repricing world that, should we say, really make a difference, and maybe things that are nice buzzwords but don't really make a difference, like people need to be aware of when they come to repricing, like to be mindful of, like what actually works?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I think that there's a lot of competition in the price optimization and the repricing space, and there's a lot of really brilliant solutions out there. I think more so than what to look out for and not look out for, looking at solutions is what to you would define as a seller would define success, and what are you looking for a tool to do? Some people really want to spend all of their time very hyper-focused on building specific strategies for very obscure or bespoke use cases. And they want to make sure every listing is so heavily optimized. And so for them, finding a solution that might be heavily customizable and have lots of bells and whistles and tools might be something that is of immense importance to them. And then other people might be more focused on reclaiming lost time. To do all of that stuff, you need to be really focused on every listing all the time. There's hundreds of thousands of products. And there's no guarantee that at the end of the day, it's going to do what it's meant to do, which is make you more profitable by spending all that time. And so there's tools out there like SellerSnap that, we're built to automate that experience. And the algorithm is optimized to make sure that what we refer to as sort of game theory repricing, we are playing this game of, cat and mouse almost with our competitors or with your competitors, and making sure that we are pricing as optimally as possible so that you win the fair share of the buy box that you deserve and at the highest possible price without you needing to spend all of this time. So, to summarize that and bring it back to the initial question, it's not what to look for or look out against. It's about you and your business and what works for you. And, I do recommend that come to SellerSnap or any solution and give it a go and understand, does this tool work for me and my business and my goals and what I'm trying to achieve, and not be so fixated on the keywords and the buzzwords and the marketing, but just really understand, does this work for me? And for a lot of sellers, what they'll end up finding is that, well, there's just one tool for their business, for the products that they sell, that actually makes them a higher profit margin, makes them more profit. And, just it's dollars and cents. Is this tool good for me? Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. Like, obviously, we use SellerSnap now, and I love it. I think it's an amazing tool. We've used competitors before, and there are other competitors who are a lot more customizable, millions of features. And while it sounds good, I was like, all I do is I spend time managing this. And it's the last thing I want to do. I just want to literally set it and allow it to do its thing, and then also watch it and make sure it does what it says it's actually going to do. And that's been one of the pleasures of working with SellerSnap, and the fact that it has actually made that difference. And I've seen, we did an hour a day, and now we do probably half an hour a week, which again freed up my time, and also I've seen the effect. So I really like that. So thank you. One of the questions I want to ask is, especially in like the repricing space, and if you're new to repricing, there's a lot of talk of like instant repricing and obviously other features such as that. But I appreciate that when I update pricing, whether it be on SellerSnap or another tool. If I change it, it doesn't change instantly. And then I appreciate that there are other tools trying to compete. How do these things work? How does the communication with SellerSnap and Amazon work? And like, what's the frequency of updates? And like, what things do we need to be aware of in that when we do repricing from a user perspective?
Yeah, so I think in order to answer that question, your listeners need to understand something, and that is that all developers or third-party tools like SellerSnap or an inventory management tool or your advertising tool, no matter what it is, we are accessing data from Amazon via one of two places. It's the SP API, the Selling Partner API, or their advertising API. And API is just a way for tools to talk to for systems to talk to other systems and get data. So we receive data from this SP API when you authorize SellerSnap to access your data. And we also update prices through this API when you give us those permissions or turn on repricing. While Amazon is making this data available and making these tools available, and sellers are providing access to use this data, what a lot of people don't understand is that Amazon also sets really strict rules on what you can do with it, even blocking specific use cases if you send updates too regularly or update listings too often. Then they block you and they slow you down. So one of the things that I think that you were sort of alluding to is for many, many years, since the beginning of reprices, we were only able to make price updates once every 2 minutes. We could send one, essentially just a CSV document with price updates every 2 minutes. And so we had to be really selective of the prices you updated and which marketplaces you updated and when you updated them because of this limitation. And so recently, in the last year, Amazon's made a change to how they do this specific process. And this term, instant repricing, has become a really big part of the conversation. And essentially what instant repricing is Amazon giving a new mechanism to update prices. So instead of updating a lot of listings at one time every 2 minutes, you can now update one listing at a time very regularly. I think it's 5 per second. 5 per second. So you can send 5 messages at a time every second, which means you can do the math, 60 times 60 times 5 at a time per day, times 24 per day gives you how many items you can update a day, which means if you are good or your repricer is good at discerning which products need to be repriced and when, and at what price, obviously, which is the other thing that we do is work out the right price, then you can update a listing what would be defined as instantly. You can't update every listing instantly because you can do one at a time. But if you are selective of which ones need an update more importantly than the next one, then you can be much faster or much more targeted in your approach to when you update a product.
I never knew it was that quick. That is quick, isn't it? And that's a big change.
So yes, well, it isn't because, it was unlimited amount of listings every 2 minutes, and now it's 5 per second. And once again, I think that's the case. I'll confirm it afterwards and we'll put a little banner in the screen if I'm wrong with an asterisk, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so it's, if you do the mathematics, it's actually much less than it was. The difference is you can update a listing immediately if you need to. If you've got 170,000 listings, well, it's still a challenge because if you do the mathematics, it takes a long time. So you have to become very good at deciding which listings to update and when. Before it was which prices to update. Sorry, what price to update. Now it is not just what price to update, it's what price to update and when to make that update. If you have listings that are really slow movers, and they have competition, should I choose that product or is it worth not updating that product and choosing something that is highly competitive, highly profitable, high velocity? Which product would you choose if you could only do one? And so those are some of the things that we're engineering. You can't instant reprice everything, but you can be selective on the things that you can. And a good repricer today should be so good at deciding which the products need repricing that it almost feels instant.
Interesting. So I'm guessing even if you're doing manual repricing, and I say manual through lots of rules, that rule-based approach is going to instantly just hit that kind of limit of the number you can update per second or per minute, especially if you've got 170,000, you said. Actually, that could be a bottleneck, that can be a problem, whereas you want some kind of intelligence to help support that change. Question for you. My understanding is that when I change this price, listening to what you're saying is I change the price on my software. It then can within a second, 5 per second, tell Amazon that information. And is it still, in the past, it was like 15 minutes for Amazon to update the buy box, or is it now instant? What's the situation there?
This is still a major challenge. So I'll give some clarity on what was essentially occurring there. I previously mentioned that there would be this document, this CSV, this Excel document that we would send to Amazon. And so what happens there is Amazon receives this document through their API, and then they have to process all of those updates. So let's think about all the things that occur when they process an update. They go through one of the products and you make an update to price. And then that price, maybe it falls outside of your minimum and maximum price, seller allowed price in Amazon, or maybe you made a different update to a title, or this product doesn't have an image, or this product needs some attributes like size, or is hazmat, or whatever, or any of the values that Amazon demands on a listing in order for it to become live and be sold to customers. So it's the same mechanism that all developers use to make any type of updates, not just price, but to product attributes and to pictures. And when they're processing, you imagine you send a document with 20,000 products, and it has to go through this process of validating every price change, every photo change, every title change. Does it meet our standards for quality, A+ content? Is there no vulgar language in it? Does this person have permission to sell this product? All of these things are happening in near real time. And so what happened with that old system was that there would be this backup in the system, and you would feel that even though we had pushed a price change to Amazon had said, "Yep, great, we have this document. We say that the receiving of the document is successful," that the time it would take for their product to munch through all of that data and everyone else's updates would mean that there's a delta between when the document is received or the price update is received and the time it becomes live on Amazon. But that difference in time is not communicated very well in a tangible fashion to developers like us. So we build a bunch of logic to understand, are we waiting, or do we need to make another price change with something not received, and so forth. So some of that challenge still exists in a different way, because even though we can now update products one at a time very regularly, the 5 per second, there is still millions of sellers and millions of people updating prices all the time. And when you make a price change, just because you want the price change doesn't mean for your listing, your inventory, that Amazon's catalog system, the system that is all the products for every seller and all the marketplaces, it has to go and ingest all that information and then make an elected decision. Does this product need to be updated in this moment? I have to prioritize. So you have billions and billions of products and listings and updates all of the time. And if we go back to that example on our level, which product needs to be updated right now as a seller? That's what our algorithm is doing. Well, you can imagine Amazon also has to make those decisions. If I can only update one product in this moment, should I update the product that is being sold very rapidly, very regularly, all of the time? Or should I update the product that hasn't had any views on the page in the last 72 hours? So they're actually deciding to not listen to you because maybe this product isn't important based on how busy they are at that point in time, how busy their system is. And so a lot of this stuff we're blind to, and but it is things that we have to consider when we're building technology.
Interesting. And is there anything from a seller perspective that we need to be aware of in regards to that? Or is it literally the tools themselves kind of, they know it, or they make it adaptations that they do, and then we just update as you say, and let the tool do its system, or is like, no, we need to consider something in our repricing strategy for that? Yeah,
I think it's just an awareness thing. Like, you have to understand that these are big, complex systems, and you need to know how to sniff out things that might be misleading. If you ask a support team from a repricing perspective, why did this happen? And the solution can't tell you why something happened, then something's fishy. They should be able to go and say, well, at this time we sent this price change. We are waiting for the confirmation that the price has been accepted at some point. You should be able to document that step. And so you get a really good understanding that the solution that you're talking to or that you're working with has a really good grasp of the space and the technology, and that you feel supported in your concern. Because essentially what you're saying is, you're meant to be doing a thing. I pay you to do this thing. I feel that the thing isn't getting done. Like, are we not on the same level? And you want a solution to be able to validate those feelings and explain to you exactly what's occurred, which is also why we take such pride in having very, bespoke, hands-on support with our customers, because we understand that your business lives and dies by the decision that we make. If we can't move your inventory, you can't put money in your pocket, you can't reinvest that money into new inventory and grow your business. Pay extra fees because you're now getting the historical days of supply fee, lower inventory level fee because you couldn't move your inventory, because you've got long-term storage fee, all these things. So we understand it's 1 + 1 = 3. These things add up. It becomes a domino effect, a negative domino effect. And I think that the one thing you need to be aware of is that, the solution that you're working with is transparent and clear with what's going on, and that there's someone that you can ask to clarify things if there's a problem.
We've talked offline before about the API issues around it. And I'd like to just kind of bring attention to one thing that you talked about, but then also to expand upon that. So one area you mentioned offline was around, I think it was within Europe, because you could only push a certain number of updates to the API at a certain time, there was a problem whereby if you're selling across multiple marketplaces, now, let's say, for example, it's 5 marketplaces and you can do 5 updates per minute, then you can only really push one product price change. And so then it starts becoming the more marketplaces you sell on, especially in Europe, I think it is because it's the same region, now starts causing problems in like how the frequency of updates slows down because you're now doing 5, not 1 update, because 5 marketplaces. Can you kind of explain that a little bit better and tell me more about it? And I'd love to know, obviously, other weird nuances, situations that maybe would be interesting for sellers to understand that you've seen, which are limitations.
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually not, I know we discuss it in depth, and it's an interesting one that I think sellers didn't understand so well, that we sort of call it internally the diminishing return on scaling your business to new marketplaces. Probably need a catchier phrase for that one. So to give some clarity to everyone listening, previously, like I said, you could only make a price update every 2 minutes. You could do as many listings as you wanted, essentially, but every 2 minutes. But that was per marketplace. So that meant that if you were selling in Canada and in the United States, you could update as many listings as you want for the United States right now, but then you would have to wait 2 minutes to update Canada. And then you would have to wait another 2 minutes to update the US. So you were initially just waiting 2 minutes to update one marketplace. Now you're waiting 4 minutes to get back to your initial marketplace, to go from US back to US. Anyone that's got a seller ID would understand that you get a variety of marketplaces. There's like 3 regions. So there's what I call the Far East, which is Australia, Singapore, and Japan, and India, I think. India might be in Europe, actually. It sounds silly, but then there's Europe, which is the biggest region. It includes all of the European marketplaces, but then also Egypt and Saudi Arabia. It's everything that isn't the Far East. And then essentially, then there is North America, which is Brazil, Mexico, and the US. So you have the North America, which is 4 marketplaces, Far East, which is 4 marketplaces. Then in the middle, you have Europe, which is 13 marketplaces. So if you were selling on all those marketplaces, you would have to wait 2 minutes for one marketplace, 2 minutes for the next marketplace. By the time you get around, we're talking about 26 minutes to return to all of those, to your other marketplaces, which could mean that you're not being competitive. The change with this instant repricing is that we can send 1 feed at a time, 5 per second, but we can hit different marketplaces with each message. So we can only update one marketplace at a time, but we can update US 1 message, one price, and then Canada 1 price, and then Mexico 1 price, and then US price, and then go back to Mexico. So we can actually optimize across marketplaces, which has changed this diminishing return, and it isn't actually a problem anymore.
When I heard about that, I was like, oh my God, that would basically mean that if I increase my business across more marketplaces, I'm actually decreasing my ability to reprice. And so therefore there's again, diminishing returns. Like, actually, would I want to decrease that or like not make that decision to scale across all the marketplaces? Can I ask, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the API, but are there any other nuances like that where, like, should we say, people should be aware of that maybe you've seen?
I don't know how much everyone should be aware of them, but there is certainly a lot of nuances. Like one that's really present in our mind at the moment is regarding B2B, business repricing. So for those that don't know, you can offer your regular B2C price, but you can also offer a discounted price to sell to people that are that have a business credit card inside their Amazon account. You can also offer quantity discounts as part of that. So businesses, if they buy in bulk, can get a lower rate per unit for buying multiple units at a time. So, we said one price can be updated at a time, a few per second, but one at a time. But one of the limitations at the moment is you can't delete and add business prices at the same time. So if we need to send new business prices, we have to send a message to delete the business prices and then send another message to return the business prices. It essentially means that your quota for business prices is cut in half, because to add and remove and add and remove. So the logic that we have is we have to send a message and then a follow-up message, a message to delete and another message to add it. So they're just quirks. Amazon is aware of some of these things and they're working on solutions for them. They're doing a lot of things all of the time. But these are some of the challenges as a solution provider that we're faced, that maybe sellers don't understand, or the work that goes into building these solutions, that sometimes it's just making systems talk to each other in the right way. So there's lots of those types of things. And I'm sure, like we said here, I could probably continue to list them off.
No, I love it. I'd like to move on to the future of REPRICE, or should we say the kind of where it's going. AI is a big buzzword. It is having an impact, especially we see it in the worlds of like ChatGPT, for example, and that's actually improved. But I don't think the world's changed overnight. Tell me about AI and repricing. What is it? How does it work? What are you seeing? And what are you using at the moment? And what's the market doing with it?
Yeah, totally. So I think if there was one thing that I think AI was having an effect on repricing, it wouldn't be on repricing itself. It would be the ability for solution providers, whether it be SellerSnap or your inventory management solution, your advertising solution, your analytics solution, to actually develop has increased. AI is an unbelievable tool to develop quickly and iterate and write code. And so what's actually happening is we're using, or a lot of these solutions, and developers are using these solutions as a way to increase the velocity at which they can engineer. So we're getting faster at bringing new features to production to solve problems that sellers have. Regarding repricing itself, it is unbelievably complex. And yeah, I'm sure some of these, machine learning models and AI models, if we were Google, could probably, put so much resources to the repricing challenge that they would, vastly improve upon what anyone in the space was doing. But there are very complex issues, and there's so many edge cases. Your product is, you're selling really well and you're winning the Buybox, and then you go back ordered. What do you want to do? There's decision that goes into some of this stuff. And so we invest very heavily in our data science team. These are, machine learning engineers, and their sole job is to improve on the algorithm day in, day out, and iterate and, version up and version up. And even they are being supported by these models in how they engineer and how they develop, but more so in a supportive nature to be able to move faster through research and faster through building the code, and less so in we're not taking ChatGPT and plugging it into SellerSnap and then we're just done, that's it. It's a perfect repricer. It doesn't work like that. We have to be very selective on the use cases. When you train a model, you're doing what's called reinforcement learning. So you're finding a situation that occurs really regularly, and you're giving the system a reward mechanism. We're saying, when you do this, you want to get a reward, and if you do it right, you get a reward. The model essentially goes and does things automatically to get that reward. So what's that reward? And this is the complexity of it all. Is the reward for you as a wholesaler profit, or is it liquidation because you want to move inventory? So what is that reward mechanism that we have to feed to our algorithm to teach it how it should behave in countless, infinite different scenarios? And so it's still unbelievably complex. There is a lot of new data that Amazon is providing to us. The repricing space is definitely becoming saturated by a lot of solutions. I think a lot of people think that they can do it, and I don't think people understand how complex it is. And some of the things that are being released from a data perspective from Amazon, I think will, in the next year, really take the space to the next level. And there will be some really unbelievable new solutions and features out there that will help people grow their business and become infinitely more profitable than they previously were.
Interesting. You talked about reward there. I'm going to kind of change because in my mind, I think about, like you talk about reward, I think about it as like, what are you optimizing for? So if I were to change it to like, what's the optimize? And you talked about two examples there, which is profits or liquidation or sell through, as the way I consider it. Like when you do these models, what are the general optimizations? What are you is that correct to transfer reward to optimizing for? Like what are the things, use cases, not say use cases, but what are you optimizing for usually? Yeah. And I appreciate it can be millions of outcomes.
No, for sure. So we bring it back to the core of what SellerSnap does. I spoke about it before. You can be very hands-on, or as we talk about with SellerSnap, the sort of repricing solution that doesn't need heavy manual configuration by focusing on this game theory inspired approach. So essentially what we're saying is that our solution is designed to win you the buy box at the highest possible price for the fair share that you deserve using game theory. And by focusing on sort of a collaborative approach to repricing. So you can win the buy box, Tom, 100% of the time, all the time, if you like. The opportunity cost of doing that is you must be priced cheaper than your competition 100% of the time. What happens when you are priced cheaper than your competition? Your competition reacts and they also lower price. And so when you try to win the buy box 100% of the time by controlling the price, you end up in a situation where you get a price war. Everyone lowers the price. So you were winning 50% of the buy box at one moment. You lowered price. Now you're winning 50% again, but you're making less margin. So what SellerSnap's ideal situation is, and what we're optimized, as you put it, to do, is to find that optimum price and to find your fair share of the buy box. That means if you deserve 50%, we'll aim for 50%. If you deserve less, we'll aim a bit less, because we're trying to look for the behaviors or the decisions that our competition makes, and then recognizing that they're following us down and chasing us to the bottom, we turn the tables on them. And when we notice those behaviors, raise our price to the top and try to play that game of cat and mouse, but at the top end of the table. And so at the end of the day, what you're left with is a situation where you're winning the fair share of buy box you deserve, but now you're doing it at a price that doesn't hurt your bottom line. And I think that's where we sort of excel and how we differentiate from some of the other solutions in the market.
Also, we talked about AI, and I'm just really aware of AI is a new thing that's come out within the repricing space. You have like AI models, for example, but then obviously you can still do manual repricing. Like, tell me about the pros and cons of using manual versus AI, and maybe the use cases you see where that's happening. And also sellers right now, maybe they're like, I'm not sure if I want to use AI or should I do it manually? Maybe some people like there's really customized options. Like, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing, and what's your advice?
Yeah, so I guess we split it into two sort of camps. You have manual repricing. We sort of refer to it as rule-based, where you set up rules. If that's, then this statement. If this occurs, then do that. Or then you have automated and algorithmic reprices like what SellerSnap does, which are always trying to provide the best scenario for a specific, the best solution to sort of maximize your profits, like I mentioned before. And there's definitely crossover. People have unique business models, and they want to achieve specific things. And so I don't think it's this or that, but it is I think it is a more of a collaborative approach between the two strategies. We are constantly trying to improve our algorithm, but if you have a specific situation, maybe if, there's a low inventory level fee, or historical days of supply is too low, then you might want to behave in a specific manner that doesn't match what our default value or default solution or decision making would suggest. Maybe you know slightly more about the seasonality of a good that maybe our algorithm isn't aware of in this specific situation. So it's, January 20th and you sell Christmas trees. You want to get rid of your inventory by the end of the month, by the end of the 26th, by that day, no one's buying a Christmas tree for the next 8 months. So our system's trying to win you the highest profitability. That's what we're designed to do. But as a business person, you also want to come in and understand, this good isn't going to have any value in 7 days at the end of Christmas. I better make it more aggressive. And that's when you get this opportunity to add some of that customization into the tool and say, in these conditions, I want you to be more aggressive. In these conditions, I want you to be less aggressive. If a specific seller is involved, or it's a time of day, or if Amazon is competing, be more subdued. Those are the sort of customizations. So we like to suggest that sellers use rules to augment the repricer and the algorithm with their industry knowledge and what makes you and sellers a competent business person with the knowledge that you've obtained through selling, and augment our tool with that expertise.
Interesting. No, I like it. And certainly for us, we see that in our use case. We use the SellerSnap AI repricing, and then there are certain situations where, like, if this happens, it might be like, this one seller, I hate them. Like I want to do this on that seller. And like that's been really, really useful where we're like combining the manual and the automation or the AI together. You mentioned earlier on about there's some very interesting things coming out with the SP API connection going into the future. I'm interested to hear, what is it? What might we see coming up into the future? Tell me about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, a lot of people wouldn't understand this or know anything about this because you just haven't been privy to the information. But when Amazon talks about Buybox, essentially they're not really talking about, or we talk about national Buybox is a better way to start this. What they're really saying is a specific zip code somewhere in the country, you are winning the Buybox or you are not winning the Buybox. But we know that that's just not how consumerism works. People are laid out all over the country. You're more likely to buy goods from the West Coast in summer for your pool, for pool toys. They've got longer summers. It's likely to happen more of the year. There's going to be more customers, more views occurring on the West Coast of the States, that is. So for a long time, when Amazon would tell us who's winning the Buybox, they just gave us a binary yes or no and said, Tom's winning, Tom's not winning. But that's just not kind of the way the world works. And what they're starting to do is become much more granular with the information. So they're sharing summaries of information. It's hard to explain. They send what percentage of the Buybox share you are winning based on historical data predicting the future, right? So what do I mean by that? You are winning the Buybox. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does anyone hear it? If you're winning the Buybox and no one goes onto the page to look at it, are you actually winning the Buybox, right? So what they're sort of saying is, based on historical data, we're predicting that if nothing else changes in this moment in time, no prices, no inventory levels, etc., if nothing else changes, we predict that you are winning this much Buybox as a percentage moving forward over the next views. Make sense? So they're saying you're going to win 50%. And then they're predicting, based on where they know the customers are located, that you're winning 50% in California of views, which is, that's all, most of the country is buying this specific product, or you're winning 50%. If there is 100 views on that page a day, then they're predicting, if nothing else changes, over that day, you will win 50% of those, 50 of those views, 50% of them. It's really complex stuff. And there is a lot of opportunity to be targeted in terms of location, of opportunity cost. You can go from winning 80% of the Buybox to 100% of the Buybox. But what is the opportunity cost in terms of price that you will have to give away in order to obtain that? Is it worthwhile? So those are the questions that we're asking ourselves based on the new data that we're receiving. And this is why I know that, this current state of repricing is just going to go through the roof in the next year, because there's so much more advanced opportunity out there to be more specific in decision making. Interesting.
Like, that's, if anyone's watching, it's like I love the point where you say, like, if a tree falls and no one's there to watch it, did it really fall? Which is really like, if you won the Buybox between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., but no one looked at the product, like, yeah, like you were the Buybox winner, but no one was actually looking at the product during that period of time. So you won it, but no one cared about that. And yeah, that's interesting, because it's about, actually, I want to be on the Buybox when people are looking, because obviously if they're not looking, they're not going to be buying. And obviously I want to win that click when they click buy now.
Correct.
How's that going to affect us as sellers? Like, what's the impact for us?
So probably in a bunch of different ways. So firstly, you will definitely gain better insight into what winning the buy box means. You'll understand better where the percentages that you're provided as terms of buy box share will be more accurate. And you'll get more control over the repricing strategy, location and strategy. And like I said, that opportunity cost. Do I want to be more aggressive? And what does being more aggressive mean? And then, working with solutions like us to make decisions on if it's fair to share the buy box or you want to win 100% of the buy box. And what's the opportunity of doing so? If I told you that you could win an extra 2%, but you had to lower price by $4 on a good, would it be worthwhile? If I said you could win 50% and lower your price by $4, that might make more sense. So there's opportunity costs in decisions. We didn't understand this stuff for a long time because we didn't have the data. And now we have the data, which means we can make it ingestible, easily accessible and useful, and then give it to sellers to input their desires, and then end up in solutions where we're better at predicting the outcomes that you want based on the data that we know. So I think that's the major opportunity. And it also is just going to require a real change in how we think about these types of things. So we talk about buy box share as a binary percentage, sort of, you either getting this amount or you're not, you're winning or you're losing. And we calculate how much time you're winning and how much time you're losing, but it's not. We need to start thinking about it more like advertising. It's views, right? Like we said, where are the views coming from and when are the views coming? So the way Amazon talks about buy box share now is in terms of glance views. That's what they call it. They're predicting how much glance views came from the last 7 days historically. And then they're telling you, like I said, assuming nothing else changes, how many glance views are you likely to receive over the next 24 hours? Their views. You're winning 25% of the predicted glance views moving forward. So the calculations for discerning buy box share are going to become more challenging. Re-injecting that into the repricing decisions so that you make the right decisions at the right times is going to become more challenging. But with that will be more opportunity to be specific about the sort of things you want, to a point where we're less focused on making really rigid rules and more in controlling the opportunity costs and being smarter with our decision making.
Yeah, it's interesting that as you were talking, I was thinking a really simple one would be that obviously at night time, less people are looking at the product. And then during the daytime, there are more people looking at the product. But if we know it between 5 and 6, this product has a really high view count, lots of customers looking at it, I might be willing to give away the entire buy box. But between 5 and 6 is the one time I want to win it, because I know that if I just win it for that small period of time, even if I'm undercutting, but my sales will go through the roof. And again, that becomes a really big kind of data problem about understanding time versus how much do I need to drop to make, and also, is that cost effective for me? And then also, what's the increase in volume? And like you're talking about, is saying having the data scientists behind this to analyze and to say, and also from your perspective, communicating to us as sellers to say, if you want to do this, this is the opportunity. And that's complex. That's not simple. And so definitely trying to think about how that works in the future is going to be very interesting, but also a lot of opportunity to make, which I really like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's so many of these nuances, and it's why the industry is so challenging. I'll just give you another quick example. If you're selling, let's say you're fulfilling out of a specific city, let's say take Chicago, and you know that most of your customers are coming from New York. Well, then, at a specific time of the day, say 2 p.m. or 12 or midday, then your likelihood of winning the buy box at that point in time is going to shift from, what could be 100% to 0. Why? Because to get it to that market from Chicago to New York after midday or 2 p.m. goes from the same day delivery to a next day delivery. So to win the buy box after that time every day, you have to lower price to become more competitive to someone who has inventory in New York. So there's so much of this nuance that goes on in repricing, and being better at understanding it is a real good opportunity to improve lots of different sellers' bottom lines.
Before we wrap it up, what do sellers need to be aware of or be thinking about or doing to stay ahead in this game? What's your advice?
I think it wouldn't necessarily even be repricing related. I think it's just the advice that I give to my team, and that is that there's a million different things you can focus on at any given point in time. And if you want to be in the space, you need to constantly be improving, but you can't improve everything at once. So choose something that is core to your business and focus on it and focus on it and focus on it until it is better, and then move on to the next thing. And so when that is repricing related, come and talk to us and bother the hell out of my customer success team. Make them be on demos with you all the time and make them help you optimize as much as possible. And then once it's optimized, go focus on the next thing that's important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that. I love the fact that I've had so many calls with your team and we've gone through products and repricing and they're like, this is optimized, but you can tweak this and change this. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. And like, oh yeah, it's good. And I love the fact that they review that with you and talk you through it. And you can ask them lots of questions and they know the answers. So honestly, absolutely fantastic. If anyone wants to get in contact, learn more about SellerSnap, how can they do it? Tell me about that.
Head to our website, SellerSnap.io. Really hard for me to say that one, SellerSnap as an Australian. It's SellerSnap. SellerSnap.io. Check us out. Watch some of the YouTube videos. You can find us there, or Tom's YouTube videos at FastTrackFBA. And I recommend signing up for a free trial for 15 days and jumping on a call as part of that. A free demo call with our customer success team that will work you through how this works and explain to you the concepts and really hold your hand through the whole process. Through the trial, the sale, if you come on as a customer, that's great. They're there the whole time. So, I highly recommend giving it a go. Make sure to say good day to me through the support line when you do.
Fantastic. I love it. If anyone wants to know, have a look in the description down below. I'll drop a link and obviously you can access that. And obviously I'll share a previous video I've done where it's about the settings I've set up for SellerSnap and how it's actually made my life so much easier. And it's really simple. Check that out. Adrian, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing everything that you've talked about today. And obviously I'm super excited to hear about the changes coming up and also that real nuance you talked about. And I love the Chicago and the New York problem. That's so interesting. And it could be completely game-changing in the way we as sellers work on Amazon. So for myself and everyone watching, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.